Support the Amigos podcast and keep the Amiga goodness flowing for just $1 a month. Visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Hi everybody, welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to be talking about Silent Service 2. But before we get into the game, Aaron, we got some feedback from this guy. His name is Mike S.
This guy.
Yeah.
Mike S. Was he in the room?
He says, hi guys, love the show. I was thinking about FPGA hardware last night and something dawned on me. Technically, they're not emulators. An FPGA Amiga system is basically an Amiga compatible, much the same way AMD CPUs are Intel CPU compatible processors. If an FPGA processor was more like a Transmeta CPU, then I could see it calling it an emulator. Back in 2000, a company called Transmeta shipped a CPU that was compatible with Intel CPUs. The Transmeta CPUs contained an Intel instruction set interpreter, and since an interpreter was involved, they were basically Intel CPU emulators in hardware. Since FPGAs are executing the 68K instruction set directly, no interpretation involved, FPGAs are not emulators. I would have no problem calling an FPGA-based system an Amiga. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I never said that FPGAs were emulators. Mm-hmm. They're not. But they are, but they're not. They're hard. They're effectively simulating. How about that? Hardware components. I mean, that's what they're doing. So they're very, very close to legitimate hardware, and so therein lies the rub, or the tail in this case, which is, does that matter?
Right.
All right. I agree. I mean, now what was it? Transmeta?
Yeah, the reason why I pulled this from the stack of emails that we get every week is that, I was wondering if you'd heard of this Transmeta CPU before.
It sounds like some witchery there.
Yeah.
You know, back in the Dizzy, you've heard me talk about the old Cyrix chip.
He was in Mortal Kombat 3, wasn't he?
That's Cyrix, but you're close. But Cyrix was a chip manufacturer that had a good run in the early days of the Intel era before the Pentium, and Cyrix made chips that were Intel compatible. In fact, like I said, I've mentioned my first PC was a Cyrix 486 chip in a 386 Intel motherboard. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what does that mean? Does that mean I didn't have a true PC? No, I had one, just they made a chip. So, I mean, I guess you could sort of equate what this is to that. Mm-hmm. I know you'll love this conversation, so I'm going to just keep on talking. No, I mean, listen, hey, I don't have any problem with the FPGA stuff. Like I said, if they make a new line of computers and say, look, these are Amigas, they're FPGA Amigas. In fact, I think that's more palatable than the actual add-on, because it's not like somebody else is going to be cranking out an Amiga.
It's definitely more palatable to the wallet than the X1 or those the new school Amigas.
You know, I saw that you mentioned that I had not messed with those, despite my promise in one of the early episodes. It's incorrect, Boat. I have looked into them. I'm too inept to use them. Okay,
I see.
Let's get it right.
I see.
But yes, thought-provoking from Mike S.
Thank you, Mike. All right, Aaron, get on board. The gamble train's a-calling.
Oh, God.
It's a time for another week of exciting, action-packed Amiga news.
Well, guess what? I did a horrible job this week of documenting all Amiga news, but I will do my best here to get through some of this stuff. In fact, some of the stuff I didn't even post, and so that'll make it a little more fun. I'm trying to see where we left off here, Boatster. Now, did we talk about Heroes of Gorluth last week? The pre-orders are out. I think
yes,
we may have
did.
mentioned
we
that.
Talked
So
about that.
If that's your bag, hop on over.
Does Google Plus not have a way to just list things in order?
It's got 6 days. Well, here's the thing. This is a good time to get into this. I post news in a very moronic way. And the way I do it is, when I see the nose, when I see the nose, I blow the nose. When I see the news, I just post, I link it up on Google Plus, right? And if you look at Google Plus, it'll tell you, instead of saying like, here's the date it was posted, it just says 6 days, 7 days, 8 days. Now, since we do this show once a week, right? then I look at the thing. Does it say less than 7 days? We'll give that one a shot. And so this particular story said 6 days. Now,
it's because it's been 6 days and like 2 hours.
That's right. And so that's why occasionally there's, and listen, the people enjoy some of this information being put over and over out there.
I can get behind that.
And especially because, what are you going to do? Yeah. So there you go. Hey, you can still pre-order it, Boat.
It's still up.
Stop yanking my chain, Boat. Okay, so next on the docket here, The Game. Did you see this? Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
This is a J minor released version of the .95 of The Game.
Now wait a minute, J minor?
Yeah, I saw it. Hey, listen, that's the indie retro news. That's what I thought. So there you go.
Okay.
Let me see what else we've got here. I've got to make sure that we haven't covered some of this stuff now that you're on me. Oh, this this is an interesting one here from the Dreamcatcher. I love it. This is he covers a game based on the Disney classic. We'll use classic loosely here. The Black Cauldron. Have you ever seen the Black Cauldron?
No,
I saw it long ago. This to put a little backstory in it is.
This was during the dark period of Disney animation.
I hear that, but what that means extra in this particular case. The Black Cauldron is a more sophisticated, more adult film that have some very provocative and violent situations that happen in it. And it tankery dude. Now it went through a bunch of rewrites and a bunch of oversight, and we're worried about this. Let's change that. A lot of stuff that went down, and so when it came out, it didn't work. It failed. So, but hey, that never stopped nobody from making games. When you got Red Heat, some of these other games, you got to have a game from Black Cauldron. And so Dreamcatcher actually looks at this, and this is I don't want to think we ever take Dreamcatcher and his work for granted, but I love this. I read it. It was real interesting piece that he wrote, that it covers. I mean, the way this was written, and I wanted to touch on this a little bit, because, I mean, I want to touch on some of the actual text in this. The guys that wrote this they were so broke. Okay, now get this. Listen to this. You've got Roberta Williams, Elaine Boulay. I mean, you've heard of some of these guys. Nancy Casero.
These are the writers of the film, The Black Cauldron?
No, these are the writers of the game.
Oh, okay.
Okay, they were. I mean, Roberta Williams. Enough said. All right, so they had no money. They had no studio.
How did they have no money? Isn't this after King's Quest, when she was already a billionaire?
Listen to this. This is they had no place to do the game. And so this was developed shortly after the first King's Quest title.
Okay.
By some of the staff, okay? So they're like, we want you to do this, but we don't have anywhere for you to work. So come over to the house. So this began, this is Al Lowe. He hauled his computer and set up in Ken and Roberta's game room with a couple other guys, and they made this game. They had no money, so they just sat in this room for months.
Wow.
Making the game.
Crazy.
It's outstanding. Outstanding work.
I didn't even
here.
know this. I like these sort of games.
I know.
And so
it wasn't a big player, was it? So I strongly urge that people read this. And if you should see the film,
I should watch the movie.
It's definitely worth seeing, just because it's an unusual film.
Is it like
Disney.
Black Hole?
No. Well, I mean,
because
Black Hole was sort of violent.
I equate those two movies in my head for some reason.
I mean, I know you're being a doofus, but
no, I mean,
in actuality,
didn't they come out about
semblance.
the same time too? Like early '80s?
But it was somewhere in the ballpark. Yeah, Black Hole, by the way, I saw in the theater, scared the hell out of me as a kid, and I like that sort of thing. Remember the bit at the end where the robot like shoots out into space and it's got the guy's face in it?
Because I haven't seen it.
Oh well, I would watch that one too. All right, next on the docket, the Boatster. Now, I've mentioned this before. I'm going to mention it one more time because I love it. Because this guy is pitching this, and he's got it ready to go. It's a work in progress. The Amiga Frontier BBS is up and running. This is a fellow that I found on the Amiga Facebook group. He's just kind of pushing this thing. I've been on here, and it's cool. He's got Amiga files. He's got Amiga Echo Mail running. He's got a bunch of files on here, door games, network games, and soon, right now you can access this just with your internet computer, but from his direct words, at some point soon you'll be able to actually dial in on your modem.
So
That'd be awesome.
is there any link to this actual thing?
Well,
or
no.
is it-
If you let me see. Did I not? I could. Oh yeah, right there. It's still look. It's.
Oh, there
I've
it
got
is.
it
I see
written
it.
in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You really can't link this. I guess you could, but you can't. Yeah. So there you go. But please check this out. I was on here at school, and I don't like anybody that's doing that kind of stuff. So, are you gonna have a look?
There it is.
Yeah. Look at that, Antsy. That's Conan, yo.
Is that Conan?
I don't know. It looks sort of like him, or maybe it's you. He's got a sword.
He kind of looks like the guy from Lionheart with blue hair.
Listen, he's not that cool.
What was his name? Lionel?
Yeah, he's getting on his train. All right. Boy, it's going to be a rough show. I can tell that. Next on the docket, God bless this man, Pixels at Dawn. He's
really provided the lion's share of the news
He's
this
picked
week.
up the slack. Oh, wait a minute. What? Are you making fun of Lion again?
Oh, yeah, that's hey.
Yeah, double trouble.
So clever.
Pixels, I don't know. Have you looked at this yet? Many Amiga, I'm going to read verbatim here.
Okay.
Many Amiga products were accompanied by videos, tutorials, commercials, promotions, and now AmigaVideo.net is working to preserve these. That sounds pretty good. Have you seen this yet?
No.
It says here, go and watch Amiga Format's intro to the A1200 or the video that came with WrestleMania.
Oh,
Holy
okay, so
smokes.
these are all like the promotional videos that were...
This is tremendous.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Now, there's the ball. You got to have the ball. All right. So that looks pretty good. We'll have to delve into these. We may have to come back and do a special look through of these.
You know, it's funny because they are hosting all of these videos on their site themselves. It's been so long since I've seen that, where it's not just a YouTube link. So pretty cool. Very professional operation.
Very good. So thank you, Pixels, for that. Pixels has another angle here, and it's funny. This was the one I was trying to post. So. This is the Vintage Wave blog. Have a new article, and I did actually look at this article. It's called "Buying a Commodore Amiga 30 Years Later," and it's a trip down memory lane, so to speak, nostalgic. You know how those crazy old computer collectors are, holding on to their Amiga all these years. What an intrepid bunch, doing their thing. And then he has a little thing here on buying stuff, the problems you can run into. This guy goes into his favorite game.
So I guess if you're itching to get back into the scene, maybe you should give this a read.
It's like a primer, right?
Yeah.
Another Pixels joint here. This is on Amiga Love. We love Amiga Love, of course. About the largely forgotten Amiga 1000 expansion, the 1060 sidecar.
Oh wow.
But get this, it adds a PC to your chunky desktop Amiga.
Man, you're talking about some weight if you combine that with the Amiga
Look
1000.
at that thing.
That's
So
like a
what
whole
we're-
other computer.
What we're looking at here is something. If you picture a 5 1/4 inch disk drive and then add about another third to the side of it, and then add, it's like an external case for that. But I mean, it's huge.
Yeah,
That'd be a
it's
monster.
massive.
Now, does that fit in with cable?
Look at that thing. That's a whole other PC that connects to your 1000.
You know, that is. I've never heard of this.
Yeah, me neither.
And I would like to have it now.
Boy, I
Amiga Love, who is the premier Amiga 1000 master. He's got, and so this clearly, I'm not surprised this came from over there. Look, that's a small PC. Is what that is.
Yeah, it is.
We're
Absolutely.
going to look into that too, because I'd like to see if that is just a PC that just plugs in. It's like, oh, it's got pass-through video, or can you do stuff with it?
Yeah.
Wacky. Another Pixels. Man, he was on fire this week. So get this one. This is the Amiga. He says Amiga rocks literally in this case, as internationally renowned rock band Muse revealed that the band wouldn't exist if it weren't for the lead singer Matt Bellamy's A500 with a 1 meg upgrade. Have you ever heard of Muse?
Yes,
Boat?
Muse is a very popular group.
What are they? Have I heard any of their stuff, Boat?
No,
How
it's
do
not
you
for you. It's
know?
college music.
It says here Metalhead. This doesn't sound like college music at all.
Today's metal is yesterday's college music.
Is that true?
That's on a bumper sticker on my
that
car.
can't be true. So I mean, it's not that much different. I don't think. I'm sure I've heard some of their songs.
Oh,
Can
I'm
you
sure you
name
have.
any song they did?
I don't know anything.
You don't know
else.
anything about Muse, do you? You were just making it up to make me look like a jerk.
How could you think I would
Because
do something
that's
like
your
that?
gimmick. That's your gimmick. Okay, so one more from Pixels. Now I actually started watching this earlier today, but I didn't get to finish it. It is a YouTube documentary, and it takes sort of a grim view of
Just that thumbnail, you know?
yeah. the Flatline, how the Amiga languished. And I watched about the first 10 minutes of it, and it shows, of course, the Amiga launching, the first killer app, all that stuff. And then, as usual, the problem with the Amiga story is, and some of the documentaries have managed to pull off a happy ending, but the problem is it's not happy.
No.
It ends horribly and tragically, and we all get screwed. So this is yet another documentary that says, yeah, we all got screwed.
Yeah.
But there's an upside, because we're like a phoenix. We're coming back up
from the ashes.
So I think that's nice. And I think that will end that. You got anything else you want to talk about? Oh, I guess we should talk about the stuff we did. You want to go over that since that's okay? Go ahead.
This week I took a look at Silent Service 2, so you can check that out. I did a little playthrough of that where the majority of the video I'm actually just trying to maneuver my craft.
You should have called that Boat Trapped at Sea, Part 1.
It's funny because if you go to play today's game, it is you can download the manual. The manual is massive.
Yeah.
But if you really want to play the game, just go on over to Lemon and download the quick start guide that gives you, to make the sub go forward, press this key, because that's really what you need.
I'll tell you something. You're not going to believe me, and I don't want to give it away before we start playing. I actually figured this whole game out without any documentation.
You're a genius.
And then I went back and got the docs to make it easier for me. But yeah, I'm not a genius. I guessed a lot. And also, I watched your video, so at least I watched the first half of that, and I was like, holy cow, I got to do better than that.
If it wasn't for my intrepid crew, First Mate Pickles at Dawn, throwing me tips, it would have been a long haul.
He's all over this show.
Yeah, he is.
We need to have his picture back here.
That's right underneath the Amigos neon sign. So ARG Presents this week.
Double trouble.
Yeah, you and the Brent did 32X. This was posted twice. If you checked it out immediately when ARG comes out on Wednesdays, give it another look, because Aaron has uploaded a new version with gameplay footage from both the games.
I uploaded the wrong one, y'all. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so this week you cover Spider-Man, Web of Fire, and Dark Side from the makers of Elite Dangerous.
Yeah, spelled cool guy style.
Yeah.
I actually kind of felt bad this week. I enjoyed the show, but I did not endeavor to have us show two weird, obscure games that
I don't think Spider-Man is that obscure.
Didn't let me finish. They were considered horrible. And so, I mentioned on the show, I picked the majority of my games for what the cool name is, as you know.
Yep.
And sometimes that works out great, like I did on the ZX back in the day with Death Race or whatever it was. And then sometimes it's not so good. But actually, Dark Side I thought was okay. But it could have been worse. But yeah, I enjoyed it. And this upcoming episode should be a real nutty affair as we delve stealthily into the FM Towns Marty.
That should be great.
Bizarre Japanese system. And we also are going to have a special announcement on this week's ARG. Yeah.
I posted a couple playthrough videos of comparisons. I compared the new Atari 8-bit version of Donkey Kong with the 1983 original, and I was really impressed. Some people didn't like it; they liked the original better. But
really?
Yeah, but
Man, I can't believe that.
I think that the updated version really looks better.
The new version is a lot better in my.
Yeah, and then last but not least, I put up a port comparison, one more Outrun port comparison. This time it's the Master System versus the PC Engine. I felt kind of weird doing two Outrun port comparisons, but I wanted to see what the 8-bit and I guess PC Engine, the early 16-bit, had to offer, and lo and behold, both of them trounced the Amiga version, to the surprise of no one. Yeah,
I don't care. Did we talk about Wild Cup Soccer last week?
No, talk about Wild Cup Soccer.
I did, this is another in the series of games we were sent. I had to go at Wild Cup Soccer. It's funny, we played the game, the other game that this company made, and I'll be darned if I remember what it was. But this was, remember Brutal Football? Brutal Sports Football. This was like Brutal Sports Soccer with weird animals. I believe this was I think that Ravi sent this over. and it was a 32X. Excuse me, listen to me, CD32 game, and it was interesting. I did have a lot of fun. I mean, just murdering people, and you could just murder the crap out of each other. And it was, I had a good time trying to figure it out. Watching Marvel at me painfully try to score any goal. I mean, I'll have killed their goalie.
Is your Amiga monitor mounted on your ceiling?
Yeah, I was using the TV.
Oh, okay. You look like you're gazing up to the heavens.
I am. That's the Amiga. It has a special place on my wall. But yeah, so I did have a go at Wild Cup, and it was pretty good. I enjoyed it.
And our very last video that just went up, well, I guess it's gone up several days ago now, but it feels like it just went up.
Controversial.
One of my favorite games, one of your favorite games, I know.
Absolutely.
I compared the C64 version of Blue Max with the Atari 8-bit version. I think that the Atari 8-bit version is superior because it plays better, and I think the music is better. But some people think that the slow as molasses gameplay is more realistic on the Commodore 64 version.
I actually went back and played both these this week through emulation, I'll have to say. And I remember I liked them. I actually like them both. The music, it really is a toss-up. It's pretty close.
It's very close.
They're both good. The C64 version has bigger sprites. The plane is larger. It's not super slow. It's only really, really slow when you're taking off. It looks much worse than it actually is. But I always played the Atari version of this. It's the one I played growing up, and I think also I think the C64 version is easier if you want the truth. But I think I prefer the Atari version, I have to say, on this one. But yeah. Blue Max, great.
Great on any platform.
Should have been on the Amiga. Yeah.
Don't play the Blue Max on the Amiga.
No,
it's not the same game.
It's a lie.
All right, Aaron, you ready to get this party started?
I am.
Tell me about your experience with submarines.
Well, I've been on a couple submarines in my lifetime, including there's a submarine in Charleston, South Carolina, that we actually got the tour. Right now it's submerged. They're trying to save it. They're hopefully by 2020 they're gonna be able to race this up out of the tank it's in, and you'll be able to actually physically go up and touch it.
Is this a World War II era submarine?
No, this is I think a Civil War submarine. It's real old.
Wow.
I think it's the Hunley. Is what it's called, but it's got a real huge museum around it. It's weird because it's in a real bad part of Charleston. Go figure, but awesome. And then they've got replicas that you can get in. So this thing, trust me, a boy like me ain't getting in this sucker. This is like a guy like wafer thin.
Very close quarters in there.
Yeah, it only went out a couple of times and people died on it a lot. But I've been on that, and then I've been on one other unsubmerged sub. Gosh, I can't remember where I was at, but it was cool. I really enjoyed it. Have you ever been on one?
Never. I'd love to. I'd love to take a tour, as it were, and see. I've got a buddy, one of my old fraternity buddies, is a submariner, and it's over in Hawaii, and so seems like something that it's one of those things where I'm glad there are people that want to go under there for 6 months at a time. Yeah. But boy, that would be a rough life.
It's funny if I'm gonna name drop him again. One of my favorite podcasters, Shane R. Monroe. He was a former naval sub occupant. He was in the service in a sub, and his stories on his show, which is Passenger Seat Radio, are great. And you get to hear the day-to-day life, what it's like, what you do in there when the sewer backs up, what you do to pass time. So if you're into that, if you want to find out more, I also worked with a guy who worked on a nuclear sub, steely-eyed killer of the deep. My friend Adam, who works in Frankfurt, and he's a real quiet, subdued guy, but you probably wouldn't want to screw with him, that type of guy. So I don't know if
kind of like me.
I don't know if it was like that before. Yeah, he's exactly like you. But yeah, I don't think I'd want to live on a sub.
No.
I will go there. So I was telling Bo, and before we even start this, I mean, and I asked him if the game selection committee knew this going in, and he didn't think they did. I guess they don't have to get together, but
and they would have. Yeah, this is definitely a major coincidence.
Yeah, it's a lot like when we did the very first Amigos, and it happened to be on the anniversary of the Amiga. December 7th.
Today is December 7th.
Yeah, we're taping on December 7th, 1941. As Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, to 1940. We're not taping on 1941, but that's the 1941, the date which will live in infamy. This was the day the Japanese attacked the Pacific Fleet, American Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor, and many casualties, massive blow, and among other things, the USS West Virginia was sank at Pearl Harbor. So it was this is a day that when I was a kid, it was really big deal, in the States. And now, like today, I was looking over the news, and I didn't see hardly any mention of it at all. Did you guys do anything at school? Did you actually go to?
No, I mean there was no remembrance. I think that for a long time, Pearl Harbor was the time that we were attacked.
Yeah.
And after 9/11, there's been a time that we were attacked again.
You're right. It's really something to think about. Cause I'm old. I'm a lot older than you. But when I was young, like this was a day that there were really 2 days that were like not really holidays, but they were remembrance days. And D-Day and Pearl Harbor were both big deals.
Mm-hmm. And also there were, when you were a kid, there were a whole lot more veterans that were around from that time.
So, I mean, as of right now, as we tape this, December 7th, 2018, 77 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It is.
And it just happens what are the odds that we'd be covering a World War II submarine simulator that covers, this is the start date when you play the game, that you can start adjusting from.
Yeah.
It's just mind-boggling. When I sat down to play this, I couldn't believe it. So, anyway, like Boat said, we're going to be talking about Silent Service 2, which is it's a American World War II submarine simulator. Silent Service 2 came out in 91. Came out a year earlier on DOS and all the DOS properties, and this apparently was converted from those. I'm assuming the ST version probably got converted as well. This came out in the ST DOS. The DOS version supported the Tandy graphics, which is cool. I always like when I see that. This was a 2-disc game developed and published by Microprose, the Microprose Labs. Microprose, the simulation masters.
Yep.
Right? Just to go over a few of their contributions: Civilization, F-19, Gunship 2000.
Micro League Wrestling.
Of course. M1 Tank, Nighthawk, Pirates, Railroad Tycoon, Red Storm Rising. So a lot
F1. We just did it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Sorry if you missed that.
And so they did a good job. They knew what they were doing. Their staff was super good at this sort of thing. It's funny though. I looked down the list of the guys that worked on this, and really the only game that a lot of them worked on aside from this was Knights of the Sky, which is a World War I flight simulator.
Okay.
Have you ever played Knights of the Sky? It's kind of a much more serious wings. With a lot more legitimate. You have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not like wings. You just go there and go bananas. And play it. What is Silent Service 2? As we mentioned, it's a game where you are the commander of a submarine, there's choices that vary, as we'll get into, and your goal is to basically win these sea battles. One thing you'll learn quickly, which I did, because I knew of this game, but my game was usually 688 Attack Sub, which was another sort of a contemporary submarine game. Mm-hmm. 688 Attack Sub varies. It's funny, they're both sub games, but they're not all that similar. That 688 Attack Sub was, often you were going after other subs. There are no other subs in this game.
Right.
There also are no neutral or friendly shipping in this game, to the best of my knowledge. So all your efforts are to blow up ships and basically destroy tonnage. That's how they measure your success. How many tons of ship have you blown up? Mm-hmm. There are many ways to play this game. You can play an instant battle, where they just kind of throw you into a battle. You can do a one-time patrol. That you can do a simulation of a war of a campaign, which is you start at a home base and you do a patrol of that area, and the encounters that you come up upon are randomly generated and they're not. This isn't some kind of roll a d20. I mean, they put some scenarios together. Like here's a fleet of ships. Here's this. Here's that. Here's a freighter. Here's a merchant ship. And then as you patrol, and your patrol is just basically you're just moving around the map with a little dot until something the machine says, hey, here's what you come across. Do you want to do something? You can pick yes or no. So they've got that aspect of it as well, and you can actually run through the whole war. When you start a game, one of the things that comes up is it asks you for a date and what date you want to play. And the date starts December 7th, 1941, and rolls all the way to 1945 into the war.
Yeah, and the date that you pick affects the class of submarine that is available to you. As the war marched forward, the submarines got better.
Yeah, early submarines. Well, it's funny. I was talking to my buddy about this. He's a bit of a war historian. We were talking about early submarines in the Second World War. One of the things this thing does, just to illustrate how thorough the game is early in the war, the Naval Munitions Council or whatever had came up with a torpedo that was, the plan was it would go, instead of going into a boat, it would go under a boat and detonate. And what was supposed to happen is it would, as the explosion went up, it would rip the bottom of the boat up like this, and it would come outwards and it would sink, right? The one problem with this is it didn't work at all. It was a dud. It didn't work. And so some of these other guys got together and got these torpedoes and put different sorts of things into where it was just like an impact device. So you would hit the ship, blow up a proper torpedo. These guys were almost court-martialed. Eventually, the Naval Administration said, listen, if it wasn't for, these guys have the highest kill ratio in the Navy. They know what they're doing. Your torpedoes are garbage. But in the game, you can pick historically accurate torpedoes or perfect torpedoes, and it makes a difference. Torpedoes also used to run on steam, so that you had your steam torpedo, then you had an alcohol-based fuel, and then you eventually went to diesel fuel. And these are all represented. I like that. As Boat said, depending on what part of the war you start in, you'll have different submarines at your disposal. The submarines that are faster, that can go deeper, that have radar. Most of the submarines don't have radar, which is another difference from 6A attack sub, where you've got radar. In these subs, a lot of it's just go to periscope depth, visual sights. They do have sort of a targeting computer, but it's not. It doesn't do much.
Yeah, it's an analog deal.
It basically gives you once you activate it, you have to have the guys in a certain area on your sights. Then you'll see the crosshairs kind of turn a different color, yellow. Then you can hit the button and it will give you range and how deep.
It works like an analog rangefinder if you in golf.
Right. Exactly. I've never used one of those. This game starts you can start out with training, which is what I did to acquaint myself with it, and you just go out and blow up some derelict ships. There are different representations on the ship of different areas of the ship. You've got your map and chart room. You've got a periscope room. You've also got a room that tells you all the ship's status, damage, how much damage the ship has sustained, how the functionality of the systems on the ship, how the hull's doing, that sort of thing. And then you've also got a area where with gauges. And this is where you can set use the mouse to set your speed. You can begin to dive and whatnot like that. Now, the way I'm gonna touch on you because I want to hear what you did. The way I played this for the longest time was going to all these different areas every time I wanted to do anything. I didn't use any keyboard shortcuts at all because I didn't know about them. I'm guessing you used the shortcuts as soon as you found out.
Well, I definitely didn't. When I first started to play, I didn't know about the keyboard shortcuts, but I think the amount of time that it took me to locate those was shorter. Because, for example, if you want to go to periscope depth, to do it the hard way, you have to go to the thing and you got to dive and then
that's exactly what I did. At first.
The real way to do it is hit an 8. If you hit 8, you go to 55 feet and the periscope goes up.
I actually printed out all the little. I'm not going to read them, but I printed out all the keyboard things. And one of the reasons I did it so I could have this paper sitting beside me when I played. It was funny. One of the things I read is there was an offer I don't know if it had it on the Amiga version, but on the PC versions of this, you could send in a postage, and they would send you a keyboard overlay.
Yeah.
Which would have been great.
Yeah, I saw Pixels found a scan of one, but it was pretty low res. I would love to have that thing. Keyboard overlays. What happened to them?
Yeah, that was a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, keyboards are variant now.
That's true.
But
Yeah.
back in the day they were pretty standard. So what I would do is bounce from room to room, and to do that you just click on at the bottom there's a line of icons, and you can click on whichever room you want to go to. And so what this has you doing is, for example, if I'm approaching an enemy fleet, okay, I want to put you can adjust the throttle up to 4, and if 4 being your top speed, you'll go as fast as you can. Now I have to admit, I played every sub that starts out in 1941. I didn't skip ahead. Okay, so I know from watching video that later subs have better stuff, but my subs are just sort of the plain Jane ones. So you'll approach a fleet, for example, and then when you get in what you consider firing distance, you can fire your weapons, and you can you can lock onto a ship, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to hit it. It just means, like you said, it's a rangefinder. Torpedoes have a limited distance; they don't go on forever.
Yeah.
As I noticed, you would just launch these things; they would just fly out in the distance somewhere. But they run out of gas, they run out of fuel,
and then it's over.
And something I learned also quickly is that you can they have a minimum distance, and so if you get too close, they won't work. Because I was like, man, I would drive right up this guy's tail, and I would drive up, but the torpedo wouldn't work. It's too close. So a lot of these torpedoes have limitations. When you shoot a torpedo, you've got forward and aft torpedoes, at least in the ships I played, and when you shoot them, you'll get an animation of the sub kind of underwater. It goes.
It's one of the most graphically impressive parts of the game. The torpedo launching sequence.
And it'll shoot this. And then you could. What I like to do, of course, because I'm vain, I like to switch over to the periscope thing and just watch the missile zoom in and hit the ship, and it would explode.
Or in my case, I watch it sail right on past the ship I'm targeting.
That's right. That's right. So just. As we're getting into this, what did you think? What were your initial thoughts on the interface and the way the game set up with all the various mission options and whatnot?
Well, I played up into the point that I played this game. All of my silent service came from the NES. And
the first one was on
yeah,
there, right?
the first one.
Yeah,
and so I kind of had an idea of the way things should go.
However, are they similar?
Well, this one seems like it's stymied by excessively complex controls. By the end of my stream, I felt like I could do everything the submarine could do, but what seemed easy and intuitive with a controller seemed much more difficult with a full keyboard and a mouse. I feel like this game gives you such a large amount of realism in everything that you do.
Yeah.
And I think for the market that these guys were targeting, they probably were going for that, versus when they made the NES version, they were like, we gotta simplify this because the console crowd is not going to want to read through this manual.
It's funny because 688 also came out on the consoles. And both those games are not games you would think would be something that would come out.
Right. And so this game, I downloaded the manual. And I was reading
the
through
novel,
it, and it's 120. It's over 120 pages long.
Yeah.
And this is a thing that you would take to bed with you. I mean, you can read it just like you would a book.
You can take it to bed with you because it knock you out.
Yeah. It gives you the full history of submarines in the war. It tells you how submarines work at a level much, much beyond what you need to play the game. But this is part of what makes computer games from this era so compelling. Not only are you learning how to play a game, but you're learning something about history, and you're learning about how these machines work. Old train simulators are also similar to that. That's, I watch this guy that plays a lot of Train Simulator because that's just the kind of guy that I am.
Also, take that to bed too.
Yeah. And, back in the day, I'm sure that the, Train Simulator 1992 came with this tome that explained everything about how signaling works and stuff like that. Now you get no manual and you get all these in-game tutorials. It's not the same thing, I don't feel like I'm learning when I'm doing an in-game tutorial like I'm when I'm reading a book.
You remember when you were a kid and you'd go out and buy a game, your parents take you out, and then you're in the car. You can't play the game.
That's
What
right.
do you do?
You read the manual. You burn that thing into your brain.
Great. And like you got to go to the can. What do you do? Take the manual.
That's right. That's right.
You're right. That is something that's gone. And the manual for this was for running. But really, I'll tell you, simulations always scare me. This wasn't as intimidating as Sim Life, for example, which I was just like, deer in the headlights. But I never played the first Silencer. It's funny because I've got the box at the house that you sent over with me, but I haven't actually played it yet. But this, I actually thought the controls in this were, especially once I learned of the keyboard controls, were pretty good. Now, there were problems, which I'll get into. And I didn't think this game, this is going to sound weird, the interface of this game was sloppy, like sluggish. I guess, if you want to click, it's not like you just simply go down to one of those icons and click on it and go to that menu. You'd have to...
Yeah, you got to pound on it.
And at first I thought it was an emulation. And so I played this on both, it seemed just, I don't know if it was really overloading the machine, and it was causing it to slow down, or I don't know what was going on, because when this thing loads up, it initializes, it's a long process it goes through. I'm like, man, what's this thing doing? It's really unfurling something here. So that was a real hassle, especially when you're going at 15 knots at full speed, and you're getting ready to run over something. Because I had a bunch of times where I couldn't get back to the menu to stop it in time before I knew about the keyboards stuff, and I would ram stuff, and that's not good for the sub when you do that. So that's probably my biggest gripe with this game is that it's just the controls, the mouse controls felt sloppy.
I agree with that
100%. I'm glad because I thought, man, boat's gonna tear me up for this, because you wouldn't think about that in this game. And even when you're launching torpedoes and stuff. And something else, the controls aren't intuitive. Example, when you've got the periscope up, there's a range on it. You can set like a magnification. Right. And what you do is go use up and down with the different mouse buttons. That's no good. Even when I was watching your playthrough and you were on the map and you were trying to zoom in and zoom out, that's not a good way to do it. No. You should have at least hold the mouse and move or something. I didn't like that. You could tell this wasn't made by people on the Amiga. So when I read that this was a port of the PC, I was like, yeah, there you go. They didn't use the Amiga like someone that actually has an Amiga that would know how smooth it is to do this mouse stuff properly. So I thought that was a problem. Another problem is even when those controls work well, you are bouncing around back and forth a lot if you don't use the keyboard controls. I guess what I'm saying is you need to use the keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah.
There's no choice.
It's really the only way to play.
When you are sailing your sub around, it's pretty easy to get you underway. To dive, it's not too bad. You learn eventually that when you want to go left or right, you just hit it once. It'll keep going left until you go back. There was a few times earlier where I would be just spinning around in a circle, like a dingbat. So I felt like an idiot there. I don't know if you dipped your toe in the full campaign mode.
Yes.
I started on the very first day, and when you start the game, it lets you choose your home port, which is cool. And you've got to be careful how you choose your port, because this game is pretty historically up on itself. And this is something I really enjoyed about it. And I could sit down and play this in history, and if I was better at it, because right now I'm not that good. But when you start the game, you start playing, these flashes will come up. They're almost like memos from headquarters or something. And it'll be like, oh man, we just lost Guam. Oh, the Philippines are being overrun. That we've lost this and that. Or we've gained this base you can now go to. And so as the war goes on, depending on what time you started it, the United States will lose or gain ports, including you can even lose ports that's your port. And so if you lose the patrol port that you come out of, you're going to have to go to another port.
Right.
And some of these ports are far off.
Yeah. One of the things that was great about this is that it gives you a sense of the scale, as you zoom in and out of the map. When you first leave on patrol and you leave from Hawaii and you're going to Japan, there's a lot of open ocean between you and Japan.
And if you look, especially again when you start, I started the day of Pearl Harbor, and it looks like you're totally screwed.
Yeah.
the Japanese are just taking everything. And, you're just like, oh God.
Right.
When you go on these patrols, it reminded me of like the out menu of Venture. It zooms out way out, and you see the whole half the world, and you're just a little dot, and you're moving the dot around. And I was watching your video, and I was like, what's he doing? What's going on? And but you move the dot around in your patrol area until something happens.
Right.
And as you do it, fuel is being consumed. Days are going by. You're occasionally getting an update from the war of what's happening. It's an interesting way to do it. It's probably not the way I would have done it. I probably would have done it more like, because effectively you're wasting your own time in non-real time.
Yeah.
At least in something like Wings, it would just be like, okay, here's the next day. Here's what's happening. You couldn't do it that way, but what you could do is be like, you could just have a calendar go until something happened, as opposed to just sitting there wiggling your dot around.
Right.
It's kind of goofy. But it's not horrible. It's not like a deal breaker or anything. When you actually get into combat, there's some real awesome. It gives you a good sensation of being on a sub. Like your commands are issued when you're heading into a battle. You hear like, when you're diving, you'll hear a guy go like, "Die!" There's bells ringing.
Oh yeah.
And when you get hit with something, the screen will shake, and you'll get these messages like, hull integrity, blah blah blah. You must surface, blah blah blah. Something else that's neat, aside from the static picture of your ship, if you get too close or if boats go over your ship, then you'll see the very unfun, I don't know if you ever got to this point, where they're dropping depth charges.
Yep.
and they don't miss, ever.
No.
I always waited for them. And of course, when they drop these depth charges, which are just depth charges, if you don't know what they are, they're just like barrels full of explosives.
Right.
And they drop down to a certain depth, and they just explode. And they are there to get subs, and they're just guesswork. They're guessing how deep the sub is. They could set them, and they just tip them off the side of the boat. They tip a bunch of them off. It's very creepy to have that happen. You're sitting there. So when ships get over you or near you, you get very uptight. At least I did. I wasn't great at the game. I'm still learning how to I'm getting better now that I've got the keyboard shortcuts that I can actually get around better, because, like I said, using just the mouse was really tough. It made it hard to maneuver. I can beat, like, if it's just a couple ships, I can kick the crap out of them. But when you get like a fleet of ships, they're coming at you full steam. I don't know if you had a scenario like that, and you're trying to evade and you're trying to be sneaky. It's tough.
Oh, yeah.
That I'm not that good at.
Again, it was one of those things where I would forget what position my rudder would be in, and I'd start going off in one direction that I overcompensate, and so, yeah, it was bad.
I looked at the DOS version of this just to see how they compared. The Amiga versions, it looks okay. I mean, it looks like they lost a little bit in terms of graphics, but it's not bad. And as I played this game, I didn't feel like I was being deprived. The sound is great. It looks good. It's a fun game. Would I call it a light simulation? No. Would I call it a deep simulation? No. It's somewhere in the sweet spot, I think. And like I said, it's got a little bit of something for everybody. If you just want a quick fight, you can go in. If you want a quick patrol, you can do that. If you want a full-on campaign, you can do that. Plus, like Boat said, you'll be able to pick different subs as the game goes on. It saves scores. It's got a high score table you can look at. It also has, it's got a lot of historical information that's accurate. It was widely regarded in its day for its historical accuracy and what you could learn from it. And I think when you play it, you probably will learn a lot about submarines, if that's something that interests you. And something we didn't mention, but when you first pick a mission, it gives you a lot of statistics on how far away you'll be able to see, and the different profiles of your sub, and how at what point they'll be able to be seen. Because when you're sideways, you're a lot easier to be seen than if you're running straight on. There's a lot of information there. Plus, it gives you all the statistics about your ship. Even when you start a game, it gives you a ship with a random name. The names are pretty cool. So they put a lot of thought into it. I mean, it's funny when you boil it down. It's a simple game in terms of the way it's the structure of it, but it reminded me sort of like Elite. It's a simple. It's the idea is less complex than it seems, because basically these encounters are they're random encounters that they just make up. But they're good, So overall, I was pretty surprised with this one, Bo. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I thought overall this is a very good A very good game. I don't think that it really is a 16-bit game, though. I mean, I don't think that graphically it's doing anything great shakes that's taking advantage of what the Amiga can do. I'm thinking in particular the views of the ships. They move very, it's definitely a frame-by-frame type movement. There's no smoothness at all. If you think about a game like Lotus, where everything is ultra smooth. I'm not expecting a sub simulation to replicate that exactly, but I'd like to see something lean in a little bit more. Like, for example, when you're looking at a ship, you should be able to see it sail across your viewport in a smooth way. It should act like a real ship. You should be able to track it. And this is just very frame. That's disappointing for a 16-bit game.
I think, you're right. But I'm going to defend this slightly, but I'm going to defend it by pointing out its folly. If you read the box for this game, it says that the game has digitized graphics, okay? And if you look real closely, all the ships are digitized ships, okay? And your sub is digitized. And when I say digitized, I'm using the little air quotes here because this is early, like we sort of digitized it and then we went in and sweetened it with deluxe paint, all right? So, I think they got a little cute on, and I think this is one of those examples where just straight up sprites or whatever would have been smoother, and you could have made them look just as good, probably better.
Right.
Even the zoom in of your ship, which is cool, but nothing moves. And I noticed a lot of times I'll shoot this stuff when I was surfaced, still saying the exact same view every time. The ships are herky jerky. And you're not going to get any sort of smooth activity through the periscope. Like you've got, some of the ships have deck guns. I never got to use those.
I mean, it would have been cool if they would have built something into the periscope where if you click and then drag the mouse up or down, that would actually make you move the periscope instead of just clicking on the direction that you wanted to go, and that would have been cool.
Interface issues.
Yeah, like you said, interface issues.
Yeah, and again, you're right. The graphics are a little herky-jerky. The whole thing is just kind of herky-jerky. The PC version looks very similar to me, though. So I don't know if the Amiga was really at its limits, or that's just the way that, the game got thrown in.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, as far as simulations go, I liked it. It's just complicated enough, and I don't want to undersell this before we sum it up. This is an incredibly complex game, and when I say it's just complicated enough to where I can play it, it's actually way more complicated than I am. But a lot of it is, the complication of it stems from your actual use of the sub. What depth you go to, how fast you go, what your angle of attack is, stuff that is beyond me to master in the 7 days I've gotten to fool with it. So that I don't want to make it seem like this is sort of a pity-patty simulation. It's a deep simulation. When you read a manual that thick with a lot of theory in it about how submarine warfare works, it actually, and you can use everything in it. It's, Knights of the Sky was eerily similar. I remember seeing pictures in it of, or Battle of Britain, another one where it would have like attack vectors for planes and stuff that you can do in the game if you know what you're doing. They give you the ability to do it, but if you don't know how to do it, you're just a doofus in a plane.
Right.
I was a doofus in a sub, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked it.
Did you look on eBay to see what this was going for?
I did. I absolutely did. So, and by the way, this is available for free, apparently. So if you want to download it, you can.
I've jumped the script. You didn't talk about how this game reviewed in the magazines of the day.
You did jump the script. I got all this right here, same page. So, Lemon really liked this one, 8.32. And this was a very highly regarded game. Amiga Action gave it a 90. Amiga Computing gave it an 88. Amiga Format gave it an 80. Just another one of these. November of 91, they gave it an 82. But in 97, one of the few games I've seen go up to an 87. It went up 5 points. Amiga Power gave it an 86 in 91. In 94, they gave it a 68.
Oh.
So this is the same old crap, man. Here's another one. Amiga, the one, gave it a 90, and then went back in 94 and gave it a 67. So I don't know what they're doing. The very first Silencers won a ton of awards. And this one was, I don't know if this one was as successful, You've played the first one. Did you enjoy it more or
Yes.
less?
Like I said, it didn't suffer from the same interface issues.
Yeah.
You could still do the patrol. You could still do the war thing.
What was better in this?
What was better in the Amiga version?
No, I mean you've played Silent Service 1.
Yeah.
You played this.
Mm-hmm.
What made this a sequel?
Well,
I mean, I know obviously digitized sound. Or that
yeah,
sort of thing.
I mean, I think that like I'd really have to go back and play the NES version again. I mean, I'm sure that the graphics are better in this version. I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I really liked about the NES version is instead of having a menu at the bottom of the screen where you have the different views, periscope, bow, stern, all that stuff.
Yeah.
When you go to the menu, I think you hit select, you actually see the cabin of the submarine and you've got a dude in there. And when you press different directions, he goes to the different stations.
Yeah.
He doesn't move in real time. He just kind of blinks from one to the other. And that made it more personal. It's like you see the guy in there.
Well, 688 had a crew, as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
Something else that I think would have helped this game a little bit is a third-person view of the sub, at least when surfaced, so you could get a better gauge because otherwise, you're basically reduced to like using that periscope to like click, and also moving the periscope around is a monumental pain in the butt. Again, interface. So there were things I would have added to like a Silent Service 3, which apparently that
I need to go back. Maybe I'll stream a little bit of Silent Service on the NES just to compare.
There you go. eBay. I found this in the U.S. I always like when that happens. A budget version of this in the box for $10. The Netherlands, $17. UK had several of these, 11, 21, $38, and Italy, $17. So everyone's looking around between the $10 and $20 mark. You can take home a box version of this. Wouldn't be the worst thing to take home. The manual, if you're interested in submarine warfare, just strictly on that basis, and it also goes over all the boats, all the different submarines in great detail. So with specs and whatnot. So if you're into that sort of thing, that's pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, Aaron, before we go, I want to remind everybody that voting is still open for the Best of Amigos 2018 poll. So every year for our New Year's Spectacular, we have an award show where people, all the viewing public votes on their favorite games, and we do too. And we have and sometimes our winners are not the audience's winners, and vice versa.
Oh man, ain't that the truth?
I only have to mention the Three Stooges to bring back that old chestnut.
Oh man.
And so that you can get to that form by I don't know that we've posted it up on social media yet. I know I've put it on Twitter and Facebook. So if you follow us on Twitter and Facebook, I don't know that we put it on G+ yet, but I'll put it up there this week.
Actually, I had not. I have to do that.
And if you, we'd like to have your input, and we're going to have a stellar Best of award show this year. Duncan Stiles has been producing some new video stuff to feed into that. So
hey, now what's the deadline to get your entry in, Boatster?
We'll tape the New Year's Eve show a couple days before. So I would say if you get in by Christmas, that's probably, if you vote by Christmas.
It's fun just to go through the ballot, and I went through and it's because it's got effectively everything we looked at this year, and it's so much different than last year. And the reason I say it is, like, the first couple years we did this show, we picked the games, we picked where we wanted.
Right.
So we hit, and trust me when I say it was low hanging fruit. It was like, hey, let's do blah, do Shadow of the Beast, right? And so you can tell this year, like, the games are of a different. They're some of them are more obscure to me anyway, but they're probably a higher quality of game. And I really struggled with picking my favorites, not because there weren't that many, but a lot of them fell in that area. I thought there were far less duds this year than we've encountered. There's no first-person pinballs or anything.
Right.
But it was, and I noticed this today when I was reorganizing the playlist. Which, by the way, the Amigos playlist for the show is reorganized. So if you want to go back and listen to the whole thing, you can do it in order now
on YouTube.
But the show radically took the game selection committee have made the show much better. Because they know so much more than we do.
Exactly.
This is another game. This week's a perfect example. We would have never picked this game in a million years.
Yeah.
I didn't know it existed. I didn't heard of it. So there you go.
Yeah. And speaking of the Amigos Game Selection Committee, we want to thank them for choosing this game. Again, that is one of the many rewards you can get by backing the show on Patreon. And last week, Aaron, the Patreon Song Challenge had a couple winners. Last week's song was Raspberry Beret by Prince.
Oh, that's what that was?
Paul Harrington, Colin 419, and Pack Billy. Congratulations, you are the winners. Now this week we're going to do something a little bit different.
Okay.
So, sometimes on Discord, you pop in now and again, and you're always like, and this happened, you're like, some guy put this thing up on YouTube. It was Andy Craig,
yeah.
longtime supporter of the show. You have no idea who our Patreon supporters are.
No,
you're like, who the hell's Figgy Z, Boat? I'm like, man, he's been on Discord
Now
14
that is
years.
not true.
So
I knew who Andy was, but I didn't pay attention to the name. I just saw the
today,
criticism.
Aaron, it's time for a little refresher. You are going to read the Patreon supporters' names.
Uh-huh.
And,
When does the singing start?
well, I'm going to provide an instrumental accompaniment. in the
Okay,
background.
that's fine. By the way, I know who these people are. Don't give me that. I just want to talk about the comment. So, gosh, now folks, look at these. See these? These look thin, but they're Coke bottle thick. I'm blind as a bat. So Boat, in his infinite wisdom, because I guarantee he came up with this little idea on the fly. He wrote these names in the smallest conceivable font. Thank you, Boat.
Man, it's got to be at least 6.5.
My God, sir. What are you doing to me? Okay, here we go. I'm just going to read this. I'm going to look like this now,
Okay.
like a doofus. So, are you ready?
Yep.
We got Tim Drew, Daniel Williams, Robert Edgerton. How do you say that one? Edgerton. Wow. The third, Simon Rose, Joseph Harrington, Kyle Etter, Rob Flack O'Hara, Howard Nibbs, Matt Larimore. I know that guy. Andy Craig. I love Andy. Shanzo, Darren Lomax, Colin 419, Bark Bit, Roland Burke, Andrew Monks, Joe the Zombie, John Cook, Dan Ross, Leaf Kaland, Alan Kebab, Chakotay, Level Lord, John Marshall, Matthew Perron, Ricky DeRocher, Creepy Dead Boy, Figgy, CTC, who's that, Boat? The Slow Norris, Stefan Sogard Martson, Edvin Helen, Blindo 75, Christopher Hassel, don't hassle me. I lost my place. Ravi Abbott, Chris Folds, Dream Ketchup, Laurent Giroux, Graham W, Webke, Brent Dowdy, Lane Denson, Adam Battersby, O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, The Huck, Gary Hucker, C. Brian Jones, Paul Harrington, Duncan Stiles, Alan Kebab, Anthony Jarvis, Tapes from the Crypt, Josh Nan, Adam Bradley, Jonas Rulo, THT, Eric Nelson, Kim, Tommy, Humbastan, Daniel Bingston, the Brutal One himself, Brutal Barracuda, Darren Coles, Jason Warnes, Pixels at Dawn, and Kilborn Barman. How's that?
That was very good.
Thank
Some of
you.
those names I felt like you were reading for the first time.
Incorrect, because I've read the list before, Smarty Pants.
I don't remember.
Oh, before we go, a shout out to our good friend, YouTube Daniel.
Yes, Daniel Cordell.
Has been under the weather.
That's true.
And he just stopped back in, so keep the waves of posts coming, Daniel. We love you.
Absolutely. Welcome back. Next week, Aaron, we're going to take a break from the sub. We're going to surface, and we're going to enter our very own international fighting competition. As all good sub captains do. We're going to play Shadow Fighter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I think I can beat him.
We'll find out. Thanks, everybody, for listening. As always, we record this show every Friday, except when we don't, but we've been good lately. We've been recording good.
It's amazing. We've gotten this close to Christmas, and we're still on target. And
Yeah.
that's despite the fact we're out there buying gifts and whatnot. Oh, speaking of gifts, but what's a great gift to give what will clothe you on a cold Christmas night?
Aaron, you can buy a shirt that will end all shirts. If you go over to teespring.com and go to the Amigos Retro Gaming Store, you can buy, I just got one of the new sweaters. I meant to wear it tonight. Unfortunately,
Kinda bland,
I
Bo.
forgot. Yeah, this is not of their ilk. This is more of the Walmart variety. But there are tons and tons of shirt options, including our Amigos World of Staff and Supporter shirts, tons of Guru Meditation shirts and Amiga Workbench shirts, the logos and things. So go on over to Amigos Retro Gaming and
You forgot one.
what did I forget? Oh, the Lionheart shirt.
No, not the Lionheart. Oh. Well, yeah, that one, of course. But what about the Mime and Puppet Bar?
The Mime and Puppet Bar shirt. That is on the number one. If you wonder what to get your mother this year for Christmas, I can tell you she's asking for the Mime and Puppet Bar.
And under
Amigo
no
shirt.
circumstances should you explain what it means.
No.
Just
no.
let her mind roll. That's right.
So, I want to thank everybody that's hanging out in the chat on live here on YouTube. We got Edvin Helland, Necronom Hasifa, Lobsterminator X, Amiga Bong. I think Amiga 500 Fury was here for a while. Amiga Dude Fury.
Retro Man Cave was in here
Retro
earlier.
Man Cave. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us this evening. We'll be back next week with Shadow Fighter. Until then, adios.